Back. Mr. Kiley, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This legislation includes a measure that I introduced called the Free Speech on Campus Act, which is a measure that I hope can receive strong bipartisan support from this committee. I originally developed this measure with someone who's pretty far out on the other end of the political spectrum, and that is the Dean of UC Berkeley Law School, Erwin Chemerinsky. But we were able to agree on the foundational importance of freedom of speech and how very troubling it is that our universities have deviated so far from this principle, which is sort of a core tenet of classical liberalism, not to mention our Constitution and our entire system of government. So the idea behind this measure is that in order to restore the proper place of freedom of speech in higher education, we need to make sure that from a legal perspective, universities aren't violating First Amendment rights, but we also need to change the culture on college campuses. And one way to do that is to make up for a shortcoming of our K-12 education system, and that is to teach students about what the First Amendment is, why it is important, the role it plays in our form of government, why it is that if you disagree with an idea, that doesn't mean you should try to silence the idea, and the history of how the First Amendment and free expression has propelled social progress, protected the rights of minorities throughout American history. And so this provision would say that when you go to orientation, when you arrive on campus your first year, and you're being educated about your different rights and responsibilities on campus, that learning about the First Amendment, its purpose, and its history is part of that orientation. And this was endorsed by the editorial board of the LA Times in an editorial titled How to Protect Free Speech on College Campuses. The editorial board wrote, "It should be unnecessary to remind students that universities are places where controversial, even offensive ideas must be tolerated. Free expression and robust debate are indispensable to the academic mission. But commentators from across the political spectrum have remarked on the fact that many members of this generation of college students are skeptical of the idea of uninhibited free speech." The editorial continues, "There should be no Democratic versus Republican divide on whether universities should be bastions of free speech." So I would encourage support for this proposal. We might disagree, often fiercely, about different ideas on different topics, but we should be able to agree on the value of ideas themselves, especially at the place where they're most vital, and that is our institutions of higher learning. Thank you, and I yield back to the chair.